Chapter 3, June 22nd, 1963. They went and buried Old Man Adams a couple days back, but none of us Negro hands were allowed to attend. Of course, ever since he went and died, I've got no work. And sure, I'm sad he's gone, but I'm not going to mope. At least now I've got time to jump double dutch. Trouble is, I can't find anyone to jump with me. My best friend Delilah is sewing at the tailor shop across town. And besides, now that she's past 5th grade, she says she's not interested in jumping ever again. My next best friend, Lovetta's chopping grass on the cotton plantation sun up to sundown, so she isn't around either. Without any work and without anyone to jump with, I reckon now is the time to dye my dress a brilliant yellow and get it ready for my first day of junior high school, even though it's still months away. So here I am, standing on the porch, hunched over the wash basin, minding my business when I spot a white man I've never seen before hobbling toward me. First thing I notice, his prickly white beard runs over his dimpled cheeks. Second thing, he was picked before he was ripe. He's no taller than me. "This is the picket home?" he asks when he gets close. Here I am, my sopping school dress in my hands. "Yes, sir," I tell him. "I'm Addie Ann Pickett." I can't imagine what this little man wants. I notice he's got a paper in his hands, and his hands, they're shaking. Well, maybe it's the heat, or maybe it's the shacks we live in. Sure, he probably heard of the Negroes, our dirt dog poor. Maybe he even drove past our houses. But I reckon seeing close up that a whole family lives in a home the size of his garden shed can be a bit of a surprise. "Lawyer for Mr. Adams," he says. "A lawyer? I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I know it's got something to do with the law, and from everything I've heard, that's not good." While the lawyer looks at his paper, I squeeze my wet dress in my fists, afraid there might be trouble. But then the most amazing thing happens. The little lawyer looks at me and says, "Addie Ann Pickett, you and your uncle, Charles Bump Dawson, are requested at the estate at 4 p.m. for the reading of the will. Mr. Adams left you each a gift." And wouldn't you know it, my heart flies up and clogs my throat. There's no way for words to get out. Never in 10 billion years did I think Old Man Adams would go and leave presents for Uncle Bump and me. The lawyer makes me promise to tell my uncle the news right away. Then he asks, "Now where would I find the cook, Mrs. Grady?" It's the best I can do to point round the bend. Even if I could speak right now, I wouldn't tell him Elmira hates when folks call her Mrs. Grady because it makes her feel old as the stars. As soon as the little man struts away, I drop my school dress on the edge of the basin and run round back, where Mom is pinning clothes on the line. I tell her what the lawyer man said. "Don't take the whole biscuit," Mama says, and grins. Together, the two of us dash around the yard to bang on the door of Uncle Bump's shed. As soon as he opens it, I tell him, "Old Man Adams left us presents." Then Mama explains about the will. "My, oh my," Uncle Bump grins. "Now then, I've got to get this girl ready," Mama says to Uncle Bump. "You gonna tidy up too?" she asks, and rubs her chin. "Oh, sure," Uncle Bump says. He touches his beard. "Sure." Mama and me shuffle back across the yard and into our kitchen. Mama sits on a chair, and I plop down on the floorboards between her legs. Well, all I can say is Mama's fingers work real good under pressure. Lickety-split, she braids up my hair in 100 little rows. Then I slip into the white dress I usually save for church. An hour later, I'm standing in the yard between our house and Uncle Bump's shed, wondering whether Old Man Adams left me all the chocolate he hid under the fruit in the refrigerator. "Come on," I call through the window of Uncle Bump's shed. "We can't be late for this." Uncle Bump steps out the door. He's trimmed his beard real short and nice. Together, we take it down the lane. While we walk, the keys to Old Man Adams' place jingle from his belt loop. But those keys have been hanging there so many years that now the sound of them seems no louder than the sound of his breathing. After we turn around the bend, we stop to get Elmira, who's equally round on her bosom and bottom, which is lucky for her because it keeps her upright while she waddles back and forth across town. The three of us set off down the lane and across the railroad tracks to Magnolia Row, which runs alongside Old Man Adams' field at the edge of town. Today, white magnolia petals litter the path. Springtime fills up my lungs. I see one blossom still on the branch. Through that flower, Old Man Adams sent me a message. Life keeps blooming, things keep on. After we get to the big house, we walk up the side steps only to find the servant's door already unlocked. That's when I get a bad ache in my chest. For as long as I can remember, Uncle Bump has unlocked these doors, raised the curtains, and given servants their orders. But now a little lawyer's taken charge, and I can't help but feel my uncle's been thrown out like the trash. Inside the big house, there's no smell of roast beef or sweet potato pie. The air is empty and stale. Elmira clings to the kitchen sink, but Uncle Bump steps into the dining room. I'm about to follow him in there when I spot the sheriff and mayor sitting at the oak table. The sheriff's arms are folded across his giant body, but his head is small, so it looks like God mixed up the parts. As for the mayor, he wears a stiff smile on his face, so it looks like his lips are curtains tied up at the corners with ribbons. No doubt both the sheriff and mayor have been tossing in their night clothes, because rumors are flying that Old Man Adams left his house and land to one of them, and everyone knows that whoever it is, he'll be a rich man. Now I plant myself in the doorway between the kitchen and dining room. I watch the little lawyer strut into the dining room from the hallway. He sets his black suitcase on the table. Then he unlatches the suitcase, takes out a pile of paper, and reads aloud like he's mumbling instructions for how to build a scrubboard, like nothing could possibly be duller. But you can bet my ears they perk right up when he reads out Uncle Bump's gift. I bequeath my gold pocket watch to my head servant, Bump Dawson. The lawyer removes a small felt bag from his suitcase. As Uncle Bump crosses the room to pick up the pocket watch, the sheriff mutters, "What kind of name is Bump?" The mayor guffaws. My cheeks burn. To hear them poke fun at a man kind and patient as Uncle Bump makes me want to hurl him into a bucket of dirty mop water. If they knew Uncle Bump's friends named him for the bumpy muscles in his arms, they both hush up quicker than a dog can lick a dish. But Uncle Bump walks to the lawyer as if he's heard nothing and slips the sack into his pants pocket. Then the little lawyer reads, "To Elmira Grady, my cook, I leave my Dutch oven." Elmira throws her hands over her mouth and waddles from the sink to the Dutch oven to examine her new prize. Not that she's got more food to cook in it, but still she releases a sob of joy. Then the lawyer reads, "To Miss Addie Ann Pickett, my cook's assistant. I reckon that little man said my name. He's talking about me. I don't think I've ever heard a white person say my whole name before. I leave my television set. It's too much to believe. I'm going to be the only person on the Negro side with a working set. I can see all the movies starring Shirley Temple. There's no doubt about it. I'll be the most popular girl in school. Cool Breeze Huddleston will pray I invite him over to watch. One day I'll be on television myself. I'm going to be a television geography teacher. Not an ordinary geography teacher, a television geography teacher like Miss Shirley Smith. I read all about her in Ebony magazine, the one I got from Church Lending Library. Miss Smith teaches children about all the countries of the world. Her program comes on in Ohio. Mine will come on in Mississippi. Why, my family will watch me on this very set. But when you know it, the happiest moment in my entire life is chopped off like a branch of dead hickory tree. The mayor snickers. There ain't no, and the sheriff howls, no electricity on Cuckoo Lane, snuffles the mayor. And there you have it. No electricity? I was so excited I couldn't stop to think, but it's true. Ever since the tornado last month, the power lines have been down on our lane. No matter how many times Uncle Bump complains, no one comes to pick them back up. While the sheriff and mayor yuck it up good, Uncle Bump rests his bulky arm around my shoulders and draws me toward him. Tears burn under my lids, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm not going to let them see me cry. I'm not. I'll save that TV set for sometime soon. Sometime soon when we get our electricity back. I've got to get going, so listen up, the lawyer says. The sheriff and the mayor swallow their chuckles. The lawyer picks up the papers. Then he clears his throat and reads, "I hereby bequeath my furniture, my books, and the remaining contents of my home to my alma mater, Ole Miss." The lawyer reads on. "The house itself will be used as a gathering spot for the people of Cuckoo. I expect the annual Christmas party to carry on without me." The sheriff and the mayor are whomper-jawed. The old man didn't leave the house to either one of them. Now they're desperate to know which one of them will get the land. But the next thing we know, the lawyer reads this. "Most importantly, I leave my land to all the people of my community. Together, whites and Negroes shall plant a garden." The instant the words leave the lawyer's mouth, a train of gasps ricochets from the sheriff to Elmira to the mayor to Uncle Bump to me. Then Elmira throws up her arms and cries, "Hallelujah!" None of us can believe Old Man Adams left 417 beautiful rows for us to sew together, plus his huge house for all Cuckooians. And all these rows are smack in the middle of town. Sure, we know Old Man Adams was free-hearted, but this is another breed. All of a sudden, my stomach gurgles. I can smell the delicious food that will come from that land. Corn chowder, pumpkin pie, and best of all, warm button squash with cane syrup dripping from the sides. I'll bet we can sell the vegetables we grow at the farmer's market. Then we'll take our money and buy batches of Mr. Mudge's famous chocolate chip cookies. I bet those will keep our tummies full all night long. The lawyer fumbles with his papers till they're all buckled in his suitcase. I'll keep the will in my office, he says to us all. Then he looks at the sheriff and mayor and says, "As leaders of Cuckoo, you two are responsible for seeing that the home and the land are used according to the will." The sheriff stands and strokes the holster of his shotgun like it's a puppy. And by the way, that little lawyer hustles to the front door. I reckon he can't leave the big house fast enough. As soon as the lawyer's gone, the mayor smacks his palms flat against the dining room table, cranes his torso across it, and shouts, "You heard what that man said?" "We're in charge," bellows the 2-ton sheriff. Then he turns to Uncle Bump and shouts, "Give us the keys." There's the key to the big house, the key to the garden gate, and the key to the garden cabin. But Uncle Bump doesn't hand any of them over. Instead, he reaches down to his belt loop and clenches those keys tight in his fist. So the sheriff picks up a shotgun and cocks it with a loud clackety-clack. Nothing about this scene stays put. The bulging veins in the sheriff's neck, the bald circle on the mayor's scalp, the rocking chair beside the dining room table. Everything shimmers like it isn't real, like I'm not real, like this isn't happening. I want to yell what I know is true. This land, it's ours too. But the words are stuck inside me. I'm afraid we're all going to die, and I wonder if it's worth it for the land. Then the sheriff points his gun at the ceiling and blasts who's who and what's what sharply into focus, just in case we didn't already know who was boss here. The chandelier crashes down on the dining room table, and 1,000 glass beads thunder onto the wooden floor. I dart into the kitchen where Elmira is crouching behind the refrigerator. I turn myself into a shadow under the drying rack. A shadow. From my hiding place, I peer out to Uncle Bump. He's in the doorway between the kitchen and the dining room, as still as a boulder. "Hand him over," the sheriff roars at Uncle Bump. Elmira shrieks, picks up her oven, and rushes outside. I want to bolt in the yard behind her, but I can't leave Uncle Bump. I can't leave him here alone. "Please," I beg him, and wouldn't you know it, without a moment's hesitation, Uncle Bump unhooks the keys from his belt loop, but he doesn't hand them to the sheriff. He gives them to the mayor. Then he pulls me out from under the drying rack, lifts my television set, and together we rush out of the chaos, out of the mess. While we scramble across the big house yard, my heart aches. While we trudge down Magnolia Row, my ears sting. And while we cross the railroad, I imagine the tracks turn upright like jailhouse bars to lock us on the Negro side of town. Later, after we set down our gifts and wipe away our tears, me, Elmira, and Uncle Bump head over to First Baptist Church. We slip into the front row pew while Reverend Walker stands at the pulpit, asking all kinds of questions. "Who is the will now?" "The lawyer in Jackson," Uncle Bump says. "What's the lawyer's name?" The three of us rack our brains up, down, and sideways, but not one of us can remember. Then the Reverend shrugs. "I reckon it doesn't much matter," he says. "Even if we could track him down, a white city lawyer won't care what we've got to say." When I get back home, I wait for Elias. I've got to tell him all that's going on. He'll find a way to make the sheriff stop bullying us. He'll hatch a plan to get the mayor to share the garden. But now that Uncle Bump and me have lost our jobs, Elias is working extra hours to try to help us get by. And tonight, by the time he comes through the door, the sky's dark as eggplant. He mutters hello to Mom and me. Then he grabs a hunk of hoop cheese and stumbles into the bedroom. I follow him there while Mama lights the stove to heat up his supper. Elias lies down on his bed. I know soon as I tell him what happened today at the big house, he'll get real quiet. Then he'll get real mad. Then he'll turn into a preacher before my very eyes and start yammering on about things like mercy and justice. Get this, I say. I sit on the edge of my bed while, step by step, I describe just what happened today. My brother doesn't say anything at all. "Ain't you mad?" I asked. "I am," he says, but Elias sounds more tired than anything. So I wait a little longer, but he doesn't start preaching. Instead, he lets out a snore that scares me half to death. My poor brother. I walk over to his bed, pull his sneakers off his feet, and set them on the floor. Then I go back to the kitchen and tell Mama to put away his supper and save it for tomorrow. Chapter 4. July 1st, 1963, morning. Ever since we got chased out of the big house, I've been jumping rope triple time. Uncle Bump's been holed up in his shed playing the most dreary tunes on his harmonica. Elmira's been burning sage to clear out our bad luck, and the Reverend's been thinking about how we can get our share of the garden back. Needless to say, with everyone so glum, it sure came as a relief to have something to laugh about this morning. Now get this. Elias and me were sound asleep when we heard someone shouting bloody murder. We both scrambled bleary-eyed to look out our bedroom window. And there she was, Delilah's mama, our next-door neighbor, storming across the yard, a dripping piece of plastic wrap in her hand. "Delilah Montgomery," she screamed. "Lord help you." Elias and me both split a rib. A few days back, Delilah told me she was going to teach her mother to get a sense of humor. "You can't teach someone that," I told her. "Why, sure you can," she said. "Just watch." But from the look of things, covering the outhouse toilet seat with plastic wrap didn't get Mrs. Montgomery any closer to a laugh. In fact, she was stinking mad. "Now Mrs. Montgomery will never let Delilah go to the meeting tonight," I told Elias. Then again, I almost didn't get to go to tonight's civil rights meeting either. That's because I didn't want to go. But a few days ago, when Mama said I couldn't go, something inside me switched, and I needed to go real bad. So I got Elias on my side. He told Mama the meeting would be all singing and praying, nothing I couldn't handle, so at last Mama agreed. But before that meeting, I've got loads to do. As soon as I get dressed, Mama and me grab some biscuits and step outside where the air is soft and breezy. I tweet, click, clack for Flapjack. Together we cross the tracks to Honeysuckle Trail, where I'm starting work at the Tate's house with Mama. Once we get there, I tell Flapjack, It's just like when I used to work at Old Man Adams' big house. Remember how you used to wait for me there? Now see if you can find some mice or birds to play with. Flapjack looks at me with glassy green eyes. We'll be done before you know it, I say. Then I kiss his head and follow Mama through the Tate's back door and into the kitchen. The second Mrs. Tate sees me, she says, "My, you're all grown up. Well, I'm sure glad you're here, Addie Ann. What with Ralphie 1 year in crawling, he's getting into everything now." And just then, as if to prove what his mama says is true, the wide-eyed boy on the floor reaches up and shoves over the trash can. Orange rinds and coffee grounds scatter across the tile. Ralphie giggles. Mama grabs the broom and dustpan and sets about sweeping up the mess. It's impossible for your mama to help me with Ralphie and do all the cooking and cleaning too. And since I'm running the Cuckoo Garden Club now, I'm out of breath thinking of all I've got to do, Mrs. Tate says and sighs. Just wait till he's walking. Then how will we ever keep up? But Mrs. Tate doesn't wait for an answer. Instead, she disappears up the stairs. All morning long, Mama teaches me new tasks, like how to change Ralphie's diaper, give him a bath, and buckle him into his high chair. Then she shows me around the Tate's house, and I've got to admit, I'm a tad disappointed. The Tate's house is 8 times smaller than Old Man Adams' place. They don't have a marble floor or even a winding staircase. But one thing they do have, which we sure could use, is electricity. And of course, being on the white side, they've got their outhouse inside. It's got plenty of running water. In the afternoon, I read Ralphie a couple stories. His books are beautiful. It seems the pages have only been turned a few times. After the stories, I pick him up and stroke his black hair like he's my cat. I don't much want to set him down for a nap because he's warm and soft here in my arms, but that boy's already sleeping. Back in the kitchen, I tell Mama I sure could use a teeny tiny cat nap myself, maybe out back under the dogwood tree, but she just laughs and pushes the laundry hamper full of Ralphie's dirty clothes into my arms. It seems all too soon that I'm carrying Ralphie's wet clothes out back. I tweak, click, click a couple times, but wouldn't you know it, that cat of mine is nowhere to be found. One thing's clear, Flapjack needs to practice following directions a whole lot better. I'm pinning Ralphie's little pants and shirts on the line when I hear that boy cry through his open bedroom window. I run back upstairs. "Hey, Ralphie," I say. He coos at me through the crib bars. I lift him out and change his dirty diaper. But I can do a heck of a lot more than change his dirty diaper. I'm going to teach Ralphie to walk today. Why, just this morning, didn't his mama say she couldn't wait for her son to take his first step? I get straight to work. I pick a blue rattle out of the toy chest and set little Ralphie on the floor beside his crib. Then I kneel down to the crib and shake the rattle. Ralphie crawls over to me and grabs it, but when I try to take it out of his hand, it turns red and balls. "It's okay," I said. "Here, you can have it," I say, and hand the rattle back. But Ralphie just throws it on the floor and cries harder. Well, thank goodness Mama's here. I pick Ralphie up and run downstairs to see if she's got any ideas for how to tame a wild beast. Mama tells me to set him on the kitchen floor. Then she takes the pots and pans out of the cupboard and hands Ralphie a wooden spoon. The louder he bangs, the bigger his six-tooth grin. When he plays the drums, I set the table and Mama fries up vegetable croquettes for the Tate's dinner. After Mama's done, she says, "We'd best be on our way. I don't want to be late for the meeting." I'm putting the pots and pans back in the cupboard, and Mama's threading her purse strap over her shoulder when Mrs. Tate waltzes into the kitchen. "Before you leave, Maisie, I want to ask you something," she said. "Yes, ma'am," Mama says. "Well," Mrs. Tate says. She pulls an emery board out of her purse, sits at the kitchen table, and files a nail. "Are you Negroes angry?" she asked. "Angry, ma'am?" "Well," Mrs. Tate looks up at Mama, my husband says you people don't think you're treated right. He says you're holding some kind of meeting tonight so you can fuss about the voter registration rules." I stick my head deep inside the cupboard. "That's just outside agitators using our church for their meeting, ma'am. Them folks aren't from here. Negroes in Cuckoo are pretty happy," Mama says. No matter how much Mama hates a fib, I reckon fibbing to white folks is an altogether different matter. "Well, that's good," Mrs. Tate says. "I'm glad to hear it." I pull my head out of the cupboard and shut the door. As soon as I do, Ralphie knocks over the trash again. Mrs. Tate holds her son in her lap while Mama and me clean up the mess lickety-split. Then we say good evening to Mrs. Tate, and weary as we are, we skedaddle out the back door, down Magnolia Row, and across the tracks to First Baptist.